I've looked at that. It's, what's it, 19.2 on Kilimanjaro?
It's 5,850 meters,
yeah,
so probably around
the metrics, yeah.
that feet. Yeah.
So do you have the same kind of equipment issues, or same type of equipment on Kilimanjaro as you would on some of the others? Or you re-outfit at each different mountain, is I guess what I'm asking.
There's slight differences in different mountains. So Kilimanjaro is one of the easier mountains to climb. And I think there's a lot of confusion around that because we're told by the guides in Tanzania that people just, show up with like cigarette in their hand and like a beer can, and they're like, oh,
there's not technical climbing on that.
It's not technical climbing.
It's a long uphill walk.
Yeah. So what I want to say is that Kilimanjaro is one of the toughest treks in the world. So if you're a trekker, if you've been trekking, it's one of the toughest treks in the world. If you're a climber, it's one of the easiest climbs in the world. So there is a big difference between trekking and climbing. So yeah, you've climbed Everest, you've climbed these other mountains, in Alps, Andes, whatever. Then Kilimanjaro is not going to be super challenging to you. There's nothing technical, or there's no such exposure. Even, weather is more or less stable throughout the year, actually. And you start from rainforest, so it was raining a lot when we started. And it's inconvenient, but coming from Nepal, where you're bundling up, and worried about snow and wind, and here it's raining and you're in your shorts, we're like, sure. So we were literally, we have a picture where we're dancing on the trek, of Kilimanjaro. So the first few days, you're gaining elevation steadily. You go slow. The same rules apply. You start in t-shirt and shorts, and as you go higher, you start with more layers. And the last summit push is still challenging. So you start at 1 a.m, and it's going to be a long walk to the summit. And the elevation now is, higher than Everest Base Camp. So it's definitely 50% oxygen, probably even lesser. So the last stretch is quite challenging, and I've heard this from a lot of people who've done it. So again, if you're a climber, then that's not challenging for you. But if you're more into trekking and hiking, this will test you.
I want to go back to what you said earlier about all of these things being a given. If you've made the decision to climb Everest, you've made the decision to do something significant, there are all of these other ancillary points or choices that shouldn't really be choices. I think that it's great that for you it was. For most people, unfortunately, they're not planners. They don't plan things out that way, and then everything does become a decision. Now, if I don't plan in advance, then everything that happens is a decision point. Every single thing that happens is a decision point because I didn't plan. And that's why a lot of people get into trouble. And, you mentioned people getting to base camp and they're sick and exhausted. That person probably had a lot of decisions that they should have made before they started but didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And then they don't have the ability to make the right decision in the moment. I did some Ironman triathlons. A lot of people don't have a nutrition plan. And a nutrition plan is probably the most significant part of Ironman preparation, maybe even more so than the physical fitness, because, to use your phrase, that's a given, right? I've got to at least be physically fit enough to run and bike for a long time and swim for a long time. But it's the nutrition plan that makes a big difference on whether someone, finishes in 10 hours or 13 hours. Or for some people, whether they finish at all. But that nutrition is going to be the difference between someone that wins or gets 12th place. And I found that people, our own lives are that way. Financial goals can be that way. Where some people say, well, yeah, can't I just will myself through it?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, probably even. Probably you can get to base camp with no real plan. Are you going to hate your life once you're there? Maybe. can I retire without really, making up a plan? I just kind of figure it out. Yeah, I mean, you're a smart person. You probably figure it out. But you got no plan. I don't know that you're going to love how things are going once you get there. And I think it's interesting to hear your perspective that those things are a given. Maybe you're just a naturally good planner.
I think I am probably more of a commitment phobic. That's what I say. Like when it comes to goals and especially professional and all, I'm a commitment phobic. So I don't sign up to anything. I'll rather be a slacker at home and do nothing, because once I sign up, then it's all in. And maybe I'm just built that way where. Because if I sign up, that means, and like you say, you're right, whether it's with my money, relationship, what do I want from it? Where are we going? Because when you don't work on the given, you're making it so much harder for yourself and other people who form the team, your core team, the larger outer team, maybe they're organizers in, triathlons and stuff. So when we're, for example, one of the mountains we're climbing, one of our friends, she wasn't doing well. So as a team, we decided she shouldn't be on this climb. And it was probably the most painful thing for her ever, because she thought she might be able to. But, she just listened to the entire team and she volunteered, which, I mean, I love her. We have amazing teammates. But one of the discussions we had at that time was that if somebody goes up, let's say 6 people are going up on a mountain and one person has any issue, that does not mean this one person is turning around or is having a hard time. That means at least 3 or 4 other people might have to physically carry this climber back down. So it jeopardizes like a lot more. And I think that applies for everything, whether you're in a, again, relationship, marriage, or with friends, with your money.
Yeah, if you fail, people are going to have to carry you.
Well, I think that's important. The point you brought up, Sanger, is that looking at, planning out things so that you have fewer decisions to make. If you've got a nutrition plan, like you talk, you don't have to decide what you're eating. If you also have a principle that, hey, if somebody turns around, 3 other people are turning around with them, there are decisions that you can sort of pre-make, or if you have a plan, you don't have to make decisions. I know when we've been hiking, I'll meticulously sort of map out, how many miles I want to go, when I want to get there, how long I think it's going to take me, those types of things, because I want to know that that's one thing I don't have to decide. I want to get that ahead of, ahead of myself, and the same thing with, when you look at financial planning, let's decide this is what we're going to do, so we don't have to decide how we're going to fund this goal. Let's have quantitative rules on investment so we don't have to decide what we're going to do if the market adjusts. Have a policy on how you're going to bring money in.
You mentioned something too about how people will have to carry you down. If you break your leg, you're not just getting a helicopter off the mountain. You've got that means your teammates are carrying you. That's in life too. Okay, so you crash and burn and you got no money.
You're taking your family down with you.
Yeah, who's carrying you now? Sometimes people are hiking solo in life and they don't have anyone to carry them, but most of us do, right? I mean, if someone that you love dearly really crashed and burned, like, you might be mad at them, you might resent them, but you probably are gonna carry them. And I think a lot of people just act like that's no big deal. Like, no, man, you're putting a big risk on these people you say you care about for them to have to carry you all the way down the mountain.
Yeah.
And that's not good. And that ruins their hike, and now they can't summit and all these things. And now they're putting their own life at risk, And I think that's a metaphor for a lot of bigger decisions.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I'm all for, what's the word, spontaneous, and, my husband will tell you, like, I'm the most spontaneous person he's probably met. It's hard for him sometimes.
You did choose to climb Everest on a gag.
With no training, no experience.
Yeah.
You're going to go from climbing no mountains to climbing Everest.
Yeah, but I did put in my work.
Most spontaneous person I know as well. I support your husband.
So, I mean, I guess my point here is that, yeah, I mean, sure, sometimes you do get lucky and sometimes you have to enjoy life and be a little spontaneous as well. I'm not against those, but if I were to look back on things I've done, whenever I've been lucky, I've worked hard to create luck. So it hasn't just, happened.
Tell me more about that. When I've been lucky, I worked hard to create luck.
Yeah, so I was extremely lucky that I was given a second chance to make it to the summit. I didn't on the first one, and a lot of people don't. And that is usually the right thing to do, because if a climber is at risk, you should not do that. But I did put on a lot of hard work from being a non-athletic, non-climber person to turning my entire being around, from my mindset to my body to everything. So when I was up in that mountain at the last camp of Everest, death zone, I was so determined to go back up. And I was lucky that my leaders listened to me and gave me a second chance. But I had worked so hard to be deserving of that chance. If both my leaders had insisted that, no, you got to go back, then they wouldn't be wrong. And they had, as leaders, every right to take that call. So I am lucky that somehow I caught them in a good mood, or I was able to, emotionally kind of, negotiate this. So I was lucky. There's no doubt about it. But I had worked hard to be this lucky. And there are a lot of other stories. We haven't gotten into my stand-up comedy career yet, but coming from Nepal, I went to New York. I did a course for 60 weeks in stand-up, and Gotham Comedy Club is one of the top 10 comedy clubs in the United States. And I just talked to one of their producers, and I said, give me a show. And it took a lot of convincing. It wasn't easy, but eventually, maybe after a month or so, I got a show, with my face on the poster, Top Shot Comedy with Shailee Basnet. And after that, I was like, I am this comedy-wise, I'm a nobody from Nepal who showed up in New York.
You just called up this guy at the Gotham Comedy Club and said, give me a show, and he gave you a show.
It took a lot of convincing, and also, there I was lucky. I was given a show, but I had been producing shows in Nepal. I had been writing my content and, organizing shows, and I had worked a lot. And so the same people who were doing comedy with me, in open mics and all, from New York, they were like, oh my God, how did you get a show? How did you get so lucky? And it's unheard of. It's a rare opportunity, but I had everything in my kitty.
So is that coming up, or did you already?
This was in 2017.
Okay, so you did.
And then the show went well. It was a hit, and they asked me to come back again. I did another show in 2019. 2020, we had a show planned, but that didn't happen. So, and now they're like, yeah, come back. Whenever you're in New York, would love to do a show with you. So, the open doors. But there's a lot of luck involved there. But, for example, if somebody gives you this insane opportunity, I think you'd have to be in that position where you can make the most of it also. So I had done the hard work of doing, everything comedy related, everything from producing to mentoring others, writing, performing, all of that in Nepal for so long, that gave me the confidence to go to this producer and be like, give me a show.
Any successful person who has any self-awareness is going to, I think, admit that some of that success is a result of luck. But that's a unique concept. I hadn't heard anyone say, yeah, hey, I'm lucky. My business is doing really well. Of course, I got lucky, but I created that luck through hard work. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of truth to that it does take luck to be successful. It takes luck to climb Everest. It takes luck to do anything that's worthwhile. But that luck's not just going to going to come knock on your door either.
No.
Luck's not going to find you on your couch.
No, and